Poker's legendary champions, next generation stars, and tireless ambassadors of the game, sharing their wisdom and guiding your journey to high achievement on the green felt. This is Tactical Tuesday on Chasing Poker Greatness with your host, Brad Wilson.
Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast. As always, today is Tuesday, so these are your hosts, Coach Brad Wilson and John. What up, sir? How you doing?
I'm pretty good. We got a whole episode dedicated to everyone's favorite poker hands today.
Yeah, taking a page out of Jennifer Shahadi's book and choosing a hand on the grid. Maybe we can do some more of these hand-themed episodes. Like I can just get you out there trying to like win big pots with like 8 deuce off for Tactical Tuesday. You know,
it's like what comes first? You win a big pot or you lose 5 buy-ins?
Just like a weekly John challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, this week is the 7 tray off. Best of luck. That's the biggest pot you can win for Tactical Tuesday. Yeah. But yeah, we've got everybody's favorite hand, the 4th best hand in poker, which you would think that would people would be excited when they have 2 jacks, but it doesn't.
It's kind of
seem
crazy, like how it's definitely like a part of poker culture, like the jacks lore, where like, if someone just says like, one of my least favorite hands, like I could probably guess it's gonna be jacks, most of the time when someone says that at like a live table or something like that. And you see it all the time, people raise to like obscene sizes pre-flop and then they just turn over jacks and like, yeah, I just didn't want to see a flop with this hand because I hate playing jacks specifically. It's
an interesting microcosm for something that I think like lots of players do, and that is avoid the feeling of being uncomfortable and not know what to do, right? I think that's like, as you get further in the decision tree, it comes up again and again in like coaching sessions of like, well, yeah, I just jammed the turn because I didn't know what to do on the river. And it's like, wait, so we're just putting all the money in to avoid an uncomfortable spot, even though you think it's not good. Like that's not good. No. And yeah, so all of that can be traced back to, jacks and just feeling uncomfortable and not knowing what to do and just wanting it to be done with like right then and there. Right. And I don't know what these hands are really going to look like. We just went through your database, found 2 ones that we thought were somewhat interesting and just going to run with them. So yeah, I guess we can start breaking down the action now with the old jack balls.
So in the small blind, this is 6 max, 5-10 online. I think the button folds. I'm obviously going to be opening pocket jack, small blind versus big blind. I make it $30. The big blind defense.
Don't you know how hard they are to play?
Yeah,
John?
Maybe I should have just made it like 130 and tabled my hand like right after. Yep.
See,
this is my range when I make it 13x.
Yeah, makes sense, right?
Anyways, not a very exciting flop. King of clubs, 4 of clubs, 3 of hearts. Just always going to be starting with check. Going to be just checking a lot on, high, low boards in general. I think you just got to be careful. Even when you have like a king in these spots, the high, low boards, I think are generally going to be slightly favored towards, equity-wise, slightly favored towards the pre-flop caller. Like they're going to have, a lot of stuff that interacts with like the low cards. In any case, I think jacks is like a very clear and comfortable check on this board, considering I have second pair and I'm not looking to put in tons of money. So I check. Big blind goes ahead and bets about 2/3 pot, $38.50 into $60. Not much to do here, especially blind versus blinds. He could be maybe once he bets this size, we can start eliminating the idea that like the big blind is betting worse hands for value, but this is just such a wide formation spot that nothing to do but just call with the jacks, I think, even facing the big size here.
Yeah, I mean, villain has so many combos, right? And like when villain has so many combos in their pre-flop range and they polarize, like it's much easier for them to have too many bluffs than too much value. which makes calling just pretty far and away the best option.
Mhm.
So you go ahead and call. And for those of you that may be thinking raise, no, don't do that. We don't want to target like the hands that are better than ours by raising the flop, and calling it is just the best path. So the turn is 8 of diamonds. So we have king 4 tray, 2 clubs. Turns the 8 of diamonds. There's 137 in the pot. John has 950 behind. He checks, and villain bet big on flop. So villain bets big on turn. They bet 100, which is again about 75% pot. I guess you're obviously going to call here, but what do you think would be their value range in this spot? Like, do you think they're choosing the size with a hand like, say, king jack off?
I think that's a really good question. I think once the big blind goes big bet, they're starting to narrow their value range down significantly. I don't know that maybe like king jack gets in there. Probably
king 10, king queen.
I think king queen can certainly do this. Like king queen that doesn't 3-bet pre-flop, like that's also a stretch. I would expect like a lot of all their king queen offsuits and definitely all their king queen suiteds to be like 3-betting pre-flop. But yeah, I think like at this point, like he's starting to rep like a very, very thin value range where like I don't know that like the king 10s and like king 9s, king 7s bet this size on flop and turn. At this point, I'm kind of expecting like a value range that's like 2-pair plus. Or that's like kind of the range that I would expect to lose to. But like you said on the flop, like on this 2-tone, high low board, there's just so many easy bluffs for the big blind to just go crazy with. That I think on the 8 of diamonds turn, it's just like it's a very clean, it's like one of the best turns I think that I could have asked for. It doesn't improve like I don't think it improves any of the hands that like I might have been beating on the flop. So
maybe king 8.
Yeah, but I'm like losing to king 8 on the flop anyway. So like, yeah, maybe it does give him like one more value hand that he can start like betting this size on the turn with. But overall, just not too worried about the 8 of diamonds. And yeah, like I don't know if this is what you're alluding to, but like I'm starting to get more and more suspicious when when the big blind uses these big sizes twice in a row.
Well, they just have a lot of available natural bluffs: 5, 6, 6, 7, ace deuce, ace 5,
right?
5 deuce, like, or just some other hands that we can't really imagine.
Yeah,
like
all the clubs.
Queen 10, Queen Jack, Jack 10. Who knows?
Yeah.
Hands that block some of the better continues with their King X. Some clubs, I think Villain will have a decent amount of clubs. They'll also 3-bet a lot of those clubs as well.
Right.
But yeah, just when they're repping King 4, King Tray, Trays and 4s, and King 8, maybe Tray 4 suited, narrow range. They've got a lot of available bluffs. So yeah, calling just makes sense. And now the river pairs the 8, and it is the 8 of clubs. So now we do have a flush on the board. The front door flush comes in, and the board pairs. I think the board pairing is, well, we can talk about it. We check, and Villain bets a third, which really makes your life quite easy here. They just let you off the hook a little bit, right? I think.
Yeah, honestly, I'm like a little bit more. I'm a little sad to see the size on the river. I think this is like, if I had to guess, like what's going on in the big blind's head, I'm guessing he's saying like, well, once the flush draw gets there, I don't have as many. I can't rep as many bluffs anymore. Like my most obvious kind of double barrel bluffs just became flushes. So I'm left with a lot of value on the river. I'm left with like my strong King X, my pocket 3s, pocket 4s, my King 8s, and then flushes. And so like my only bluffs, I think, my only perceived bluffs on the river are going to be like
straight
shots
draws
and
are bluff too, guys. Straight draws.
Yeah.
Bluffs too.
Right.
People always forget about the straight draws. They're the the abandoned combos in Villain's range.
The orphan.
Yeah, the orphan, the one that nobody thinks about. Like, yeah, there's so many different straight draws. In poker, it's easier to make a straight than a flush. That's why flushes are more valuable, which has to mean that there's more straight draws than flush draws, right? Like, did this kind of make sense to me? Or it's easier to make a straight draw than it is a flush draw?
Well, in any case, I was like sad to see the small size. Just thinking that I mean, it does make it easier. Like I'm getting a great price to call in a wide formation spot. I'm obviously never folding jacks, facing like the small size on the river, given that they can still have like all those straight draws available.
Yes.
But in general, I would expect
makes
the
you
straight
sad,
draws to
but
go
it's
big.
easy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I think like the downside to using this sizing as a bluff is like you give villain a great price, and like it's easy to have a lot of natural air balls that make calling okay because you only need to win 22% of the time here on the river. And I mean, yeah, we can imagine like the hands we said 5 6 6 7 5 7
Ace deuce, ace 5,
ace 5.
Yeah,
There's a lot of them.
so we do call and see the 6-7 offsuit.
Yeah, I think you pegged what they were thinking accurately, but I think where they went wrong was realizing that like, oh yeah, if I've got the 6-7 and the 5-7 and the 5-6 and the ace deuce and the ace 5, that's actually a lot of hands that didn't get there on the river.
Yeah.
That makes bluff catching pretty simple.
Yeah.
All right. So first hand, well done. You managed to navigate playing pocket jacks well. You won a 60 big blind pot. This is how it's done, ladies and gentlemen. We've put it to bed of how you play pocket jacks. You just check and call any bet.
Yeah, just close your eyes,
over and over.
click hit call 3 times, and hope the pot is coming to you after you click call the 3rd time.
Easy peasy. And after the break, we'll have another pocket jacks hand that is quite different than this one. It's one of the Jon specials, so stick around.
It's way more exciting. You want to stick around for this one for sure. Don't miss it.
Well done. You're getting better. Good
Yeah.
job.
Before I got Nuffle, I had run into a lot of donk bets. And I think once you play a certain amount of hands, there's something wrong with our opponent's strategies, but you don't know how to play to maximize EV against it. And it's very frustrating. I looked at the document and I couldn't believe that I paid money for it. I actually doubted that it could provide value because it was so brief. But since then, it's repaid me just over and over and over again. And it's one of the most consistent moneymakers built into my strategy that sheds light on just how bad your opponents are. And it took me 20 minutes to perfect it. And it's just amazing. Yeah, I'm speechless. It's just that good. The simplicity of it is part of it being a masterpiece.
All right. Jon did such a great job of building this hand up to hold your interest and excitement. So now we have 2 jacks in the second hand. We're playing 1K no limit, which feels like it's the typical stake on Tactical Tuesday for the most part. You've got 2 jacks on the button, so I mean, you may have this hand that's impossible to play, but at least you have position, right? So that's a good thing.
Yeah. That's why I've only made it 3 big blinds.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm on the
That's a good
button.
point. Yeah. Big blind defends. You open to 3x. Big blind defends. You get the flop of your dreams here. Ace of hearts, king of spades, 6 of diamonds. Villain checks, and
Similar story, I think, on the previous flop. It's just not a board that I'm gonna be looking to put in extra money if I don't have to.
Where's the old days of just like range bet a third here?
Just 1/3. Yeah, long gone.
Range bet a third here.
Yeah.
How far we've come from range betting a third on every single board.
Like, whoa, I could check back the flop. That's crazy.
I can't believe it. So you check back. Woo! What a life. There are hands in your range you want to check back. Probably hands like King Queen and King Jack and King 10 and maybe some like weaker aces as well.
Yep.
Might make some sense here.
Yep.
And villain checks a turn. The turn is the 8 of spades. So flop went check. There's 65 in the pot. The effective stacks don't matter because we ain't making it that far.
Hey, you never know what could happen on the river.
They're gonna know, Jon. They're gonna know. We've built this hand up to something that maybe it's gonna fall short of expectations here at the end. I don't know, but you check. Villain checks. You check behind. So we make it to the river. There's still 6 big blinds in the pot, and the river's a 10 of diamonds, and the villain bets what could be half pot. I'm not exactly sure.
No, it's like
40%
less.
pot
It's
or
like this
something?
weird size. I don't know what this is. Like some 40 something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 40% it looks like.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts here before you do anything?
I think that villain can certainly have lots of like one pair hands that are value betting river now. I think certainly all their ace X that doesn't bet the turn, which I think is also reasonable by the way for them to like check a hand like ace deuce, ace three, ace four, ace five, like the weakest ace X, and just go for one value bet. I think can definitely bet this size. I think some of the stronger king X can start betting this size as well. Wouldn't be surprised to see either of those hands in their value range. I don't think that villain is ever value betting a hand that is worse than pocket jacks. I think I would be very surprised to see villain like to call this river and then see villain show up with like 10x. I think that would be a little bit too thin. Also, like I think my hand kind of looks a lot like what it is in this spot when I check back when I open pre, check back ace king six, check back turn. It's gonna be like a lot of jacks, queens, nines, tens, those sorts of hands.
Yeah, and villain has mostly one pair hands, unless it's like ace 10 that improved or 8-10 or like 6-10 suited or something like that.
Right.
I think like their 2 pair generally bets on the turn after the flop goes check check. So yeah, villain's got mostly one pair hands. I think you have mostly one pair hands. I guess your tens gets promoted to a set. You have king 10. I mean, maybe you could have queen jack as well. I think queen jack has showdown value just with its queen high.
Right.
on
I think like the
ace
nut no
king
pair.
X.
I think that's a really good point. Like a hand like queen jack where that's nut no pair is like very similar to a hand like pocket deuces, essentially. And like I would just check back pocket deuces, hoping to just get to showdown with those hands. So, I think, checking down queen jack in the spot, queen jack high in this spot is very very reasonable.
Yeah, which makes, basically we're trying to figure out the hands that would check down to make your raise make some sense here if you're trying to fold out like ace X. And I think you do have some reasonable hands that check down and that would raise the river. I also think that like it's hard to find hands that check down and raise the river that aren't beating one pair, right? Like you've really got to be turning a 10, maybe a 6 into a bluff by raising the river here.
Yeah.
Maybe 7s or 9s make some sense.
So,
I guess like
before we even like get into like the raise river conversation, like do we need to raise the river? Like is jacks just not good enough to call, you think?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
The way that this board, like, I don't think villain has enough no pair hands, and I also don't think they have enough thin value bets that you beat. Like you said, I don't think queen 10 is betting the river. Which
Well,
is
like, do they just have
problematic,
enough
right?
bluffs? You think in this spot where like, we can
I
just
don't-
close your
I
eyes
don't
and
think so. I
call
mean,
with jacks?
Maybe like queen 5 suited or jack X suited. We have 2 jacks. Like I think any 8, 6, or 10 is most certainly just checking the river. So like basically they just need to have like queen 5 suited or jack X suited, maybe like 4 5 suited or something like that.
Maybe there's like some 9x, 7x that can get in.
7-5 suited.
Yeah.
Queen 9, jack 9. Notice a lot of these hands that I'm
Have jacks in them.
that I'm finding have jacks in them, which is not good when we have 2 jacks ourselves. So I do think you probably have to raise on this specific board. If the river's like a deuce, then maybe not. If the river's like a 6 or an 8, then maybe not. But I think the 10 just connects things to where it's kind of hard for us to find a lot of natural bluffs, and villain will check most of their ace X on the flop and the turn, and also their like king queen on the flop and the turn as well.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it makes sense that like they have natural value bets, not a lot of natural bluffs, and so raising instead of bluff catching feels like it goes up in value to me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking as well. I don't know if I like went that far in my like actual in-game thought process, but um as you know, previous episodes of Tactical Tuesday have shown, my general philosophy on the river these days is like, if I don't feel great about calling, my immediate next thought is, can I get away with raising? So pretty sure that was like the extent of my thought process here.
I mean, I also think like theoretically it makes sense too, right? Like to me that
Yeah.
you,
Yeah. Yeah.
in order to have bluffs, you almost need to have a pair.
Yeah.
So you have to turn some of those, and like this one blocks the queen jack, which is certainly in villain's range, and that's just quite nice.
Oh.
Also blocks like, ace jack, but that's going to be a 3-bet, I think, for the most part. But anyway, yeah, you go ahead and you go for it for the 140, and villain folds. Villain says no, I don't want any. What do they have though? I don't actually know what they have yet. Ooh, look at them. They went for it with the king.
Yeah.
It's quite thin.
Yeah.
Quite thin.
This is
You're not gonna like this when they look it up afterwards.
maybe
I
like
think.
the actual bottom. Like, I don't know. Do you think this is just like way too thin to bet on the river?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talked about Jax not being a good bluff catcher.
Yeah.
So Jax is like one of the best hands that they beat besides queens. And if Jax is deciding to turn itself into a bluff rather than bluff catch, there's probably you've probably gone too thin, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of, oh man, I sort of like understand this guy's desire to value bet the king here, especially with the kicker that plays with like.
I get it too.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I get it. Like, and God knows that I value bet thinner than this in my poker career.
Right.
Way thinner than this. I remember a hand I played a while back where I value bet ace jack high, and it worked out about as terribly as value betting ace jack high could go. I got raised and snapped it.
Oh, man.
Like, oh yeah, you think I called? They're like, nut boat, and I was like,
I was
okay,
value
well-
betting, bro. Like, don't
well
you can't
played.
raise.
Well played. Well played.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I understand it, but I think it's a good find here with your jacks, and the longtime Tactical Tuesday listeners will notice that, yeah, we're turning pairs into bluffs. I have to live with it these days. It's just part of my reality. So you make peace with your reality. You don't try to change it. I think that's going to do it for this episode of Tactical Tuesday. Even though had a hand where we checked down to the river, I think it is an interesting spot. And like for Tactical Tuesday listeners, you can get back to us about hands like this where, there are multiple streets with no action, right? But these are the type of hands that you play in poker the majority of the time. And it's fun getting to parts of the decision tree that we haven't really discussed in depth a ton on Tactical Tuesday. And also, send us some themes. We need Tactical Tuesday themes, guys, where our creative juices are lacking.
Yeah.
I
I think just one last like kind of educational thing that I'll add to like this episode is that if I just range bet a third with this hand on the flop, or like, bet too thinly on the turn or whatever, that involved not checking both flop and turn, I probably don't find a way to win this hand.
No.
Yeah.
You bet the flop, then you check back, and
Right.
lose.
And I think that's something that's like a little bit unintuitive and something that like I didn't really understand until like I started like checking back flops, but like checking back can actually like open these doors up that like don't exist for you to like find ways to fold out king 9 or ace deuce or something like that, whereas like if you start by range betting flop, I assume you're just like checking turn and river and just losing to all the ace x and king x.
Yeah. We could bet check bet, John. Let's not lose out hope. You could bet a third, check back turn, and go crazy on the 10 river.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, so there are other ways to win the hand, but I think like, just don't think that like, oh, just because you're checking back, like you've given up all hope on finding creative ways to win. So yeah, that's just the last thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, these branches of the decision tree exist for a reason. You
Mm.
know, find them, figure them out, and yeah, I think that's just a thing. Going back to the original theme, jacks hard to play. Well, put yourself in uncomfortable spots that are currently difficult for you to play, and maybe a year from now they won't be so difficult if you put yourself out there. And I think it's just a necessary part of poker progression. And yeah, that'll do it for today's episode of Tactical Tuesday.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening to Chasing Poker Greatness. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com to get the newsletter. Join the Greatness Village community, book a coaching session, or dive into the latest data-driven poker courses. Follow the show on Twitter @CPG Podcast.